Hey guys, it's Kim Snyder, director of the Voice Club, and I want to take a time to answer a question I get a lot, which is, what do you do, and how is it different from this, and what does this have to do with that? And it's really complicated. If you go out there to look for vocal instruction and vocal help and vocal training, you'll find all tons of stuff. It's really hard to figure out how the pieces of the puzzle work together. So I'm going to decipher for you on a real simple white girl chart for you today, kind of the basic schools of thought and where they come from. The most basic, if we look at the holy grail of what most people are trying to get to, it would start with bel canto. If you've heard of this word before, it means beautiful singing in Italian, and really where it comes from is in the 1800s. There were a bunch of monks that sung up in this monk village, and they had beautiful voices, and they had low notes, and they had high notes, and they had a lot of ease. They could sing all over the place, and no apparent strain. And the other thing that was different is that they didn't just have the little boys singing the high notes. The full-grown guys sang high notes as well as all the low notes. And so it was like, oh, how do they do that? Well, many, many years later, a school of thought, and I'm going to call it theoretical, we're going to put theoretical over here, came along, which has now become what is known as the classical movement. Now, I'm not dissing classical vocal instruction. Matter of fact, my own mother is a classical vocal instructor, and she'd get on me if I was going to be all dissing that. So I got to know I totally respect classical music and classical instruction. And matter of fact, a lot of the best things, and I think the best things that come out of it, came from their passion on the early years of trying to figure out how they sang like that in bel canto. Now, what they did is try to go back and say, theoretically, how can we make the sound that those guys made? And so basically what has evolved through generations is a system of kind of how do we posture, how do we hold ourselves, how do we open up the rib cage, how do we control the breathing, how do we manipulate different parts of the body to be able to put the sound in the mouth and pull the string in the head, and how can we manipulate and posture so that we can make the sound that those guys made? Well, there's a lot of good things and bad things that go into classical, and it can differ greatly between instructors. So I'm not making a blanket statement. But pretty much what happens over the years of people studying classical is that you get inconsistent results. Some people say, oh, it's wonderful, and some people say, oh, it's horrible. And there is some vocal damage that comes from people studying classical. In fact, you might not know that the Metropolitan Opera tenors, as a career field, have more vocal surgery than rock singers do that really sing heavy rock. You'd be like, no, it's true. They do. So it does create some vocal damage when taken to the extreme and done for a long time at a high level. It's not my opinion. I'm just going by medical statistics here. And it's suited for a limited styles. Like, for instance, a classical sound is good for Broadway, and it's good for, obviously, classical music, right? But if you go into rock and you've been singing classical, it can be like, how can I make this sound and do that? And then you got a whole nother issue, don't you? Okay, so there's a different approach to the bel canto method, and that would be anatomical. The anatomical approach says not how can we make that sound, but it says how does the voice make that sound? Not how can we generate that, but how is that already generating that? How can we study that? Well, the thing is, honestly, when classical music started, and until the anatomical approach started, there really wasn't the scientific advantage of looking and medically really seeing what happened in the body and in the voice. So they didn't really have the access to that kind of information. But then along came a guy in the 1940s who happened to be singing the classical method, and he was singing on Broadway. His name was Seth Riggs. That might sound familiar to you. And he started a movement that is called SLS, or speech level singing. Now, the idea behind speech level singing was, how can we remove posturing and manipulation and trying to control things, and instead put our voice in a natural position to just do what these guys were already doing. Now, Seth came to that because he was having issues singing classical music on Broadway, and people were wearing out and not being able to finish their 8 shows and their 8 weeks of all the contracts that they had and stuff. So he went to study this with surgeons. He studied with surgeons about what the voice does, and he was really fascinated by it, and he developed a system really just for his Broadway buddies on how can we get through more successfully, and then more people wanted to know about it. It kind of grew out of that. Now, the SLS, speech level singing kind of approach, has been proven to remove problems in the voice. It does avoid vocal damage, and it applies to any style. That means you could sing Broadway, you could sing pop, you can sing rock, you can sing folk, and the things that apply to the voice apply to those styles as well. Here's an interesting side note. Did you know that, let's say you were certified and you trained as a speech level singing instructor and you knew a ton of stuff, and then you left and you weren't with that organization anymore. Did you know that you could never tell anyone that that's where you came from? Because if you do, there's kind of some legal issues, right? So I'm just putting it out there. There are probably a lot of people that come from that school that you would never know come from that school. So I'm going to tell you what the Voice Club does and how it's different from all of these. So we're going to take theoretical. We're going to put it over here just to make a little bit more room. We'll put classical over there. It's going to be on Broadway, right there. Anatomical, we'll put anatomical right there. I've already talked about that. Now, if we take the end, let's say this goes into that, and this comes up to here. All right. Then we have the Voice Club. What does the Voice Club do? Well, the Voice Club takes a proven system that was reserved for professional singers and high-level instructors and takes it to a whole nother level. Now, where did this come from? Well, a long time ago, I used to teach something else. And I was certified, and I became certified because I really wanted to know more for my own voice. I was a full-time professional singer, voice talent. I was gigging, I was in the studio, and I was having issues with my voice. And I had studied, honestly, rock belting, Broadway belting. I had studied classical. I'd studied everything out there and was having issues. So I knew that I needed something better. And I actually was teaching voice talent at the time, and I thought, you know, there's got to be something to looking at the voice anatomically. I think that's where the key lies. So I found great training, and I said, you know, forget this. I'm going to train as an instructor because I want to know more fast. I don't have 6 months to figure this out and try to understand it. I got till Friday. So let's get a move on. So I went through all this stuff, and I'm pouring through all this material and trying to make sense of it. Anyway, I ended up really fixing all my vocal issues, and I was really pretty darn happy with it. And then along came a horrible time in my life. I went in, I had a bruised eardrum. I went to the ENT, and they said, oh, your eardrum's, yeah, it's pretty bruised. You're going to plug it up for a couple months, and yada, yada, yada. By the way, how's your voice? And I said, oh, my voice is fine. They said, well, it's not going to be in a week. And I'm, what, shock and awe? And they said, well, you've got really bad acid reflux, and the acid's about to burn your vocal cords, rendering them useless for the rest of your life. Freaked me out. So I said, well, let's get on this. So we scheduled a bunch of tests, and they did a bunch of things, and they decided they should do surgery because I kind of need my voice to work. So we did a surgery. I'm going to be in and out in 4 days, going to be fine. Didn't go so well. I ended up getting septic. I almost died, and I had 2 years of recovery and about 7 other surgeries, during which one of the surgeries, they damaged my right vocal cord with an intubation tube, and it completely prolapsed. It just gave out, right? So 2 years, almost the entire time, I either physically could not make a sound with my voice, or I was put on absolute vocal rest. That means you don't even go, nothing, because they didn't know if I was going to be able to close my vocal cords again. And it was very, very frustrating. Of course, I thought I'm never going to work again. I'm never going to talk again. I'm never going to be able to sing. I'm not going to do all these things. And I was going around the country to different specialists. And one of the specialists I was working with, and of course I knew a lot about the anatomical study of the voice, and I was working with a specialist that came out of Harvard, and really well-respected guy. And he said, you know, and I'm writing on a dry erase board, and I'm telling him what I teach and what my vocal background is and all of these things. And at that point, I was teaching a system I had created for myself as a singer to try to boil down all of the things that ever worked for me and make it really, really easily digestible. And so I told him I'd do this because of this, and I was going through the whole thing. And he said, you know, if there's any hope of you recovering your voice, you've got to do it. Not what I wanted to hear. He said, you have the ability to retrain your voice. He said, do I think you'll ever get it back to the point where you can sing at the level you were before? No, I don't. Do I think you'll ever get it back to the point where you're going to be able to work professionally again? I probably don't. But I think you can get your voice back if you train your voice the way that with the system that you showed me. I think you can do it. And I was really frustrated, and then I was angry for a while. But then I thought, dagnabbit, I want to talk. So I started working. It was hard. It was an uphill climb. But before long, I could make sound again. And then I kept looking at my system, and I thought, well, if this is true, and now I feel this in my voice, then if this, then why not this, and why not that? And I started making it into a really concise treatment program for myself. Well, not only obviously did I get my voice back, and I'm talking as fast as I ever talked before, maybe a little faster now, I got more time to make up for, but I also gained an extra half octave. And the other thing that happened is in that time, I was teaching a couple people and just kind of as a favor, and they wouldn't go away, and I sent them to other teachers. I'm like, go, go, go. And they're like, no, teach me what you're doing. Teach me what you're doing. And so I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this system that I've created, and I'm going to use it to prepare my students so that I can send them away, because I want them to be really educated about why their voice is doing what they're doing and what they should avoid and what they should look out for, all of those things. So I taught them with what is now the Sing Better Faster system, the Voice Club method. I taught that to them so I could get rid of them, but they didn't go. And more people just kept coming and coming. And my voice prepared, and I thought, I guess I'm just going to have to teach people about this. That honestly is where the Voice Club method came from. And the results have been crazy great. Everybody else has had the same results I've had, so I just keep doing it and been doing it for quite a while now. See, proven results, prevents and reverses vocal damage, not only in my own voice, but other singers I've worked with nodes and nodules. There's a lot of that stuff you can fix, and all of it you can prevent with the right approach to the notes. And it applies to all styles, all ages, does not matter. That is the Sing Better method. That is the Voice Club method. If you'd like to find out more about it, give me an email or stop by thevoiceclub.com and check it out.